everyone, and welcome to my Orchard, Corset, and Washington highlights video. So here I'm going to give you a synopsis of what happened during the blogger get-together back in March. So I'm only 7 months late, so it's all good. Day 1, I flew to Seattle and I ran into Paul, one of the videographers, and then Cora at the SeaTac airport. Apparently we all had the same flight into Wenatchee that day. We spent that afternoon and evening settling in because the other bloggers wouldn't be arriving until tomorrow afternoon. So the next day, before everyone else arrived, Cora and I got the chance to interview one another for our respective channels, which was super exciting. That afternoon, we piled into a minibus to pick up the other bloggers from the airport. Danny, also known as Scarlett from the Corset Authority on Tumblr, Brandy, also known as Ms. Miasma, also from the Corset Authority, and Heidi, who runs Straight Laced Dame and who is also a guest moderator for the Corset Authority. This was the first time we've all met in person, but you can see that we got along pretty quickly. That evening, we all went out to dinner and just chatted and got to know each other a little bit before we got to work the next day. Day 2. The 5 of us piled into a bus and got the official tour of Orchard Corset headquarters, or at least their old headquarters because they've since moved to a new location. We met their team, employees old and new, and we also got to see the popcorn factory adjacent to the Orchard Corset warehouse that Jeff's sister runs. And we learned the difference between butterfly popcorn and mushroom popcorn, and of course each of us got to take home a bag of toffee popcorn. We saw the studio where the filming of the interviews and the photo shoots would take place, and we got to take a brief peek into some of the available wardrobe, although we didn't stick around there too long because of course we needed to discuss the group interview and look through boxes upon boxes of corset samples in limited fabrics and rejected styles and such. So here's the station where they cut the laces, and here is Heidi rummaging through some samples to try on. So these are the CS301 Waspy samples, I believe, and these are all limited edition fabrics. So once we discussed who would answer what questions in the interview, we went over to the studio and started filming that afternoon, which took nearly an hour. By the end, we were so ready for lunch.
And thank you all for watching us, and we'll see you back here at the Orchard Corset YouTube channel. Thank you so much.
Yay, we did it! Now we can eat. I need to belch.
Later that afternoon, Heidi, Danny, and Brandy represented the Corset Authority and interviewed Sherry on her experience working for Orchard Corset. Day 3. This was the day of the photo shoot, and the theme this time was Red Carpet Event. So here, Skylar shows us how it's done. And after her turn in front of the camera, she stayed to help us with poses in case we got a little camera shy or didn't know how to pose or anything. Cora declined to be photographed, but she also hung out in the studio with us as we had our hair and makeup done, and then we each got a turn in front of the camera. Heidi was a natural in front of the camera and she needed no coaching. She got several really impressive shots, and that black dress fit her perfectly. So here is one of her photos. Next up was Brandy, and you can see how Skylar was very helpful in giving some post suggestions. We didn't notice until later that Brandy and Skylar's dresses were actually the same cut. They were just different colors, but the dress flatters both women fantastically, and I kind of wish I had bought that dress while I was in the US. Next up, it was me, and I was a little nervous posing in front of 7 or 8 other people in the room, but I think I did okay. Only I learned that you should never get out of character and start yapping away while you're doing a photo shoot, because Jasmine will end up taking some silly pictures of you, such as this one. And Scarlett, or Danny, was last to be in front of the camera, and you can see how her years of dance training has come through by the graceful way that she holds her arms in her hands. So here is one of her best photos. And lastly, we had a group photo done, and then it was a wrap. So as much as I love having my hair in curls, I could not wait to get back to the hotel so I could brush out my hair. Perfect. Day 4. The bloggers' last full day together was reserved for some fun, so we went to Haran Estates and had a wine tasting followed by catered lunch. We saw how they made the wine step by step from start to finish, and we learned about some history of the Haran family as well, and they're just such lovely, welcoming people. This was not my first time at the Haran Estates, but you know, it had been a year since I had last seen them, and they remembered me, and they came up and hugged me, which was kind of awesome. And they have such a selection of wine that I think by the end of the tour, each of us were able to choose our favorite wine from the selection. Afterwards, we spent the afternoon in Leavenworth, which is a beautiful place. All the architecture was made to resemble a Bavarian village, I believe, and it has so much charm. We spent some time trying on some hats, and some were quite classy, while others were a little bit silly. Heidi and Danny left with some flattering hats, and we spent the rest of our time there just wandering in and out of shops and generally enjoying our time together. Day 5. The next morning we left at the crack of dawn so other girls could catch their flights, and Cora and I stayed in Seattle as we had a meet and greet event that afternoon, kindly hosted by Trixie and Lance from Old School Pinups. Trixie did my hair, which was a treat for me, and I think she was kind of pleased to be able to work on such long hair as well. The meetup was by RSVP only, and they really went all out for the event. There was a confection table, they had a bartender, and they let Cora and myself set up some of our corsets from our personal collections onto the tables. I finally got to meet some of the people that I talked to online for what seemed like years, and some of my old clients even came to visit me. One of them was even wearing the corset I had made for her, which was awesome. And, we all felt almost like old friends by that point. I ended up leaving the event a tad earlier than most other people because the videographers and I had to catch the ferry to Port Townsend as I was due to meet Sarah and Gabriel Chrisman that evening. We arrived late that night, but the Chrismans waited up for us and they were so hospitable, setting up their guest bedrooms for us. The morning of day 6, Sarah made a big breakfast for all of us, and while the guys were setting up their equipment for our interview, Sarah showed me some of her favorite antique items, including clothing, furniture, brushes, even a type of cologne that was available in the Victorian era and is still selling today. And some of my favorite things included the Tesla light bulbs, Gabriel's pocket watch, and here's a slow motion version of the inside parts ticking. Also the ordinary bicycle, which Gabriel can actually use, and of course Sarah's corset collection, which ironically I didn't get pictures of. And by the way, she says that she now has all of her corsets made by C&S in the UK. After the interview with Sarah, she took us on an unofficial walking tour around Port Townsend and some of its old architecture and interesting stories. We popped into a few shops and I met some of Sarah's friends and acquaintances around the town. Our time together in Port Townsend was really only around 36 hours or maybe less. Super early the next morning, the videographers and I had to leave and take the ferry back so that I could catch my flight back home. So it was quite the jam-packed week, but it was also a lot of fun. I apologize for getting this video out 7 months late, but I hope it was fun for you to watch. And now I need to start working on the highlights of the England trip. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.